Whether your individual goals are related to developing your physique, optimizing your performance, or improving your general health profile, the reality is it's worth considering the quality of the food that you consume. Unfortunately, in today's society, food has been dumbed down to nothing more than calories. Very little consideration is made for chemicals, and very little consideration is made for being anything less than a number that we enter into an application on our phone. But the reality is that food is so much more than that. In fact, food, to a large degree, is our fuel source. And it only makes sense that if we want this machine of ours, which it definitely is, to operate at its highest capacity, then we should be doing our absolute best effort as often as possible to provide it with the best quality fuel that we're able to. A lot of people like to make the argument, well, everything in moderation, whereas I prefer the stance as healthy as possible, as often as possible. And that certainly doesn't mean that anyone will be perfect. But knowing is half the battle, and being consciously aware of the decision that you're about to make sets you up in a much stronger position to make a better decision. And better is all that we can hope for and all that we can aim for. Because better over time leads to big results. Oftentimes we're creatures of habit. We don't necessarily make food choices because we think it's good or bad. We just eat what's there because that's normally what we do. So by asking these questions in advance, we'll start to bring light to the habits that we engage in on a consistent basis in consideration of our consumption choices. And maybe, just maybe, you'll swap some of those out for something just a little bit better. Now, it's important to recognize with these qualifiers that they're not absolute, but they'll definitely provide some serious guidelines in order to help you determine if what you're about to consume is actually real. The first question you might want to ask yourself is whether or not you recognize where the food you're about to eat comes from. If you can't identify where what you're about to eat comes from, there's a high possibility that it's not real. Now, again, as I mentioned, this isn't an absolute statement, but do a quick mental checklist through all the things you'd be likely to consume and ask yourself, where have you ever seen those in nature? The second question is, does it come through a drive-through window? Because a lot of times, even things that look real that come through drive-through windows are not real. And we all know there's a lot of stuff that comes through those drive-through windows that doesn't even look real, and we definitely know is not real. So if it comes through a drive-through window, it's a safe bet to say that it's probably not the best quality that you could consume. It's not the best fuel for your machine. The third question, the third qualifier worth considering is, does the ingredient list have more than 6 individual items on it? Because if we start getting that deep into the ingredient list, there's a strong possibility what you're eating is not real. And the last, but definitely not the least qualifier, arguably one of the most telling qualifiers, is whether or not what you're about to eat has its own mascot. And further, if you get some sort of prize, if you're incentivized to consume that product. If the food you're about to eat has its own mascot, its own cheerleader, and it also happens to give you a toy when you buy it. Again, it's not absolute, but there's a strong possibility what you're about to eat is not real. So next time you're out to eat, or when you're shopping at the grocery store, or even making your grocery list, run through those 4 simple questions, those 4 simple qualifiers in advance, and determine what you might be about to eat that's not the best quality for you, and further, might actually be the furthest thing from real food. Make sure you follow or subscribe depending on what social media platform you're seeing this on, and as per usual, if you happen to have any specific questions related to training, nutrition, or lifestyle in general, send them my way, and if I'm able to, I'll cover them in an upcoming post.